It's been a great career for you, Rabs. I bet you've met a lot of characters along the way.
Oh yeah, far too many to even try and recall their names, you know.
Well, the current day guys that you knock about with in the broadcast box on a Friday night or Origin night or Sunday afternoon football.
Yeah, well, you're probably thinking of Gus, and Gus is...
Does he keep you on your toes?
Yeah, he does. You've got to understand, though, that I like him a lot. I think I even love him, you know. He's a brilliant commentator. But he doesn't realise that the blokes with the whistle, they've got a job to do, and they take it out of the manual, they take it out of the rule book and they apply it. Now, you can't knock a bloke for taking it out of the rule book and applying it. Sure, I'd like to see them use some discretion sometimes, but there's no area that I can see in the rule book that talks about discretion. And that's where we clash. But most of it is in good faith and good humour, you know. But he reads the game so beautifully. He's a wonderful orator. But he's one of the weirdest characters, getting back to your question, he's one of the weirdest characters I've ever met, you know. I hear about people being bipolar. I think Gus is tripolar. I think I've met three Gusses. I'm sure I have. I've met three Gusses in one trip to Melbourne in the space of about 5 hours. Now, I won't go into that because it'll take too long to describe, but he is he's a very weird chappie, put it that way, but I like him so much.
You love the swimming, Ray. Where did the love of swimming come from?
I don't know. Honestly, I could hardly dog paddle. And when I went in the police force, they made you get your bronze medallion. And I'd swim 50 metres and try and get out of the pool, and they'd stand on your fingers and tell you to get back in and swim. So eventually they made me good enough to get my bronze medallion. So I suddenly realised I could swim, but I never had any aspirations to call swimming until the late 80s. Channel 9 said, Norman May, the sight in his good eye is failing, and we need somebody to call the swimming. He'll do the colour, the statistical stuff. So suddenly in 1989, Norman and I got together and started calling some local events, and then Nine sent me to Auckland to do the games. And it was at a time when Perkins was coming through, Susie O'Neill was coming through, and it was a golden time. They won 21 gold medals at the Auckland Games. And then I never got called upon to do swimming again until 1998, and that was again the Com Games in Kuala Lumpur. And suddenly I realised that I really love this, you know, because it was a reminder to me about calling races. And so when Channel 9 came away from Kuala Lumpur, they realised that swimming was going to be a big rater. And they put it in prime time, if you remember. A couple of years we were in Fukuoka and Yokohama. They put it on air at 7:30. The Nationals, we did them live at 7:30. And of course, there was Thorpe and there was Hackett, there was Klim, there was Hugel, there was all of the good girls. Liesl Jones was coming through, Libby Trickett was coming through. So I came through with this harvest of absolute superstars, and it wasn't hard to get in. It wasn't hard to get excited, and it was easy to be in love with the sport.
Yeah, 98 was the rise of Ian Thorpe, pretty much. That's when he came onto the scene.
Yeah, well, he did. In 97, I think it was 97, over in Perth, was when he beat Hackett in the 400. Hackett had never been beaten over 400, and this snotty-nosed kid, 14 I think he was, he beat him, he touched him on the wall, and Hackett will still tell you the story, you know, he nearly fell out of the pool. And then Thorpe went on to become the greatest freestyler I think I've ever seen over the sprint journeys, 1, 2, 400. The other bloke, Hackett, of course, he provided me with one of the great thrills, and that was to watch him smash Kieran Perkins' world record in Fukuoka in 2001. As I said, I came through with a crop of just absolute megastars. And then at the tail end of what I did in swimming, I I found this American called Michael Phelps, and he would go down as the best all-round swimmer I've ever seen.
In front of Thorpe?
I said overall, I'm talking about as an overall swimmer. He could do all the strokes, and he won 8 gold medals at the Olympic Games. He broke Mark Spitzer's record, so he must have been pretty good.
We mentioned Hackett and Thorpe on a different angle, Ray. They're both retired now, and they're staring a little bit of adversity in the face, and they suffered from depression, and it's been documented that Hackett has been a little bit irrational, and Ian Thorpe has bottled something up inside for so many years. Aside from their specifics, these are just 2 very few examples of sportsmen who go into retirement and they can't handle life after sport. Where are they seemingly getting it wrong? Where is life in general getting it wrong for them?
Well, I feel great sympathy, not empathy. I feel sympathy for both of them because as kids, keep in mind, Ian wasn't forced to become a swimmer. He was just the tag along. Mum, Margaret, she would take his sister to the pool to train morning and afternoon. I mean, they do a couple of hours or 3 hours before you and I get out of bed, up and down the black line, up and down the black line.
Monotonous.
And then they come out of school, mum's waiting for them again, and back they go to the pool, up and down the black line. And you give up a great portion of your life, adolescence. You put that on the back burner if you want to be successful. So Ian basically jumped in the pool and thought, well, I might as well do something while I'm waiting for mum and my sister. And Hackett did the same thing. And that's why you find a lot of these people, I mean, even Jeff Hugel, when he gave it away, he looked like a man mountain. He doubled his body weight. I think it's in some ways it's an expression of rebellion. It's a belated expression of protest.
They've endured that for such a long period of time.
I did all this for so long. I missed so much of this and that. And I mentioned a little bit flippantly earlier depression. I think it can be a breeding ground for depression, really.
Were you surprised with Ian Thorpe and what's occurred with him inside the last 12 months, bringing his book out and openly admitting, he's had a few skeletons in the closet, I suppose, and then the depression and also the fact that he's gay. Not that there's an issue with that, but the fact that he bottled it up for so long. Yeah, well,
I feel sorry for the kid that he bottled it up. That's something that I really feel sorry for him because every man and his dog wanted to tell you that he was gay, and I got asked that question more than anything, and I think I said, look, I've got no proof that he's gay, and to be quite frank with you, I don't care if he is or he isn't.
Sure.
But I can understand the depression with swimmers because, as I just pointed out, they give up a great chunk of their life, a time that, you and I are out, having a game of cricket, kicking the football, maybe go for a swim, but we're not there for 3 hours morning and 3 hours afternoon. And I think when they do retire, they might have the tendency to break out. And it's a form of protest, if you know what I mean.
Do you find it humbling that people love to impersonate you, Ray? And I'm not just talking about 1 or 2 individuals. Every time there's a game of football on, there's a Ray Warren in the crowd, or a dozen, or more.
Well, I'm not privy to that because I'm broadcasting, but I used to be angry about it, because I thought people were sort of taking the mickey out of me. But now I'm flattered and humbled by the number of people that want to do these Rabs impersonations. And I'm no longer angry about it. I'm proud of it, really.
Yeah. But well, you should be.
The funny part about it is I get so many of them that are on radio. I might be doing a radio interview and somebody will say, oh, we've got a bloke that does a good Rabs on the panel. Can you mark him out of 10, And when I hear it, even when I hear Birmingham and those people, I think, do I sound like that? And I openly say, I don't know I sound like that. I mean, if Birmingham's accurate and I sound like that, then I don't know how I got to where I've got.
It's quite funny. The Footy Show, many radio stations, I've actually used it on a radio station as well, as ring up on the open line number and give us your best Rabs impersonation and you win a prize. And just continues on today. The thing is that fun element never goes away. It's always there. Whilst you're still broadcasting, I mean, I'm paying you a lot of homage here, Ray, but it's actually you're giving people entertainment on the side. So,
Well, that's nice of you to say, but I repeat, if I sound like some of the impersonators, then I just wonder. I wonder whether I should have probably given it away many years ago. But the funny part about it, I've never had any voice lessons or anything like that. What you hear is me. The only time I tampered with my voice was when I was that kid trying to be Ken Howard. And I worked very hard to get rid of some of that, but I obviously didn't get rid of all of it.
you're proud of people impersonating you. Probably in a similar vein, there was a bit of banter on 2GB in the continuous call team in the weeks leading up to an unveiling of your statue in Junee.
Yeah, well, it started as a joke and it finished up as a reality, and I got quite aggravated by the fact that they were starting to sound like they were getting serious, the continuous call boys, and they were putting pressure on the Mayor of Junee, a lady called Lola Cummings. And I went down and I spoke to her and the council, and I said, look, this is just a joke. Don't worry about it, but you need to know I'm finding it highly embarrassing that there would even be a mention that they should be building a statue of me in Junee. I said, because there's many, many more people more worthy than I. And Lola said to me, well, it doesn't matter. She said, we can't afford it anyway. And she said, you're right, it is a joke. So I came back to Sydney and I said to Hadley, I said, I put an end to that. He said, what have you done? I said, I went to council. And I said, they can't afford it anyway, so forget about it, end of story, domino. And of course, what happened? Then he went over to Gingell at Channel 9 and Gingell underwrote the whole bloody thing. So now they come to the unveiling in the August of 2011 and I had to speak, and I was quite emotional because I looked down at my elder brothers and elder sisters and they were just overcome by the occasion. And to be quite frank with you, so was I, because there must have been a crowd of 2,000 or 3,000 people that came to the unveiling. And now I drive past it and I think to myself, what a lovely monument, not for me, but for my family, for the Warren family. And when I think about Mum and Dad, they deserve a monument, And if through me they have been monumentalised, then I'm proud of it, really proud of it.
You speak with a lot of emotion when you talk about your parents, Ray. You can tell you're very, very proud indeed, which takes me to my next question. It may be associated with them, it may not. Personally, what are some of the sadder times in life for you?
Losing Mum and Dad. I mean, that was devastating. I wasn't there with Mum. She died, in fact, on Melbourne Cup Day in 1988 when Empress Empire Rose, won the cup, and that was appropriate because she was my Empire Rose as well. You've got to understand, because Dad didn't want to travel because of the travel sickness on the trains, I became Mum's handbag, and we were very close, But then when Dad was dying, I went down and I had a little bit of time with him, but then it started to scare me, just the thought of it, that he was going. And I said, I've got to go back to Sydney. I've got some work to do. You're going to be okay, I knew he wasn't, but it's something that haunts me now that I was. I don't know what the word is. I was frightened. I was scared stiff that my dad was dying, And then the other thing that I think I got very emotional about was the youngster that you talked about swimming, a young fellow called Adam Harvey. He was my eyes and my ears. He was my researcher. He was my left arm, my right arm. And he was just absolutely brilliant in what he did. And Eddie Maguire had bought the Olympics in London in 2008. And this young fellow, Adam Harvey, said, we've just bought the Olympics. He said, you're coming, aren't you? Because he knew I didn't want to fly and be away from home. And I said, look, Adam, time, I said, it's only 2008. I said, it's 4 years away. I said, I'm not a spring chicken, and, you know, we never know where we're going to be in 4 years from now. And he kept at me and he kept prodding me. You're definitely coming, aren't you? You know, every 6 months or so. I said, look, I don't know, mate. I don't know. I've told you. You know what I'm like? And I said, I don't know where I'm going to be. So he went to the Winter Olympics in Canada, and he asked one of the Channel 9 girls to marry him. And she said yes. And when they came back, before they got married, he had this thing on his leg. And he went to have it checked, and it turned out to be a melanoma, and it killed him. 3 months later, the same thing basically killed his father. But here I was left with this memory of this wonderful young man that had probably made me in swimming what I was. And here I'd left him with this unfinished discussion about London. So the reason I went to London, and let me assure you, I didn't want to go to London. I was going to I would have found an excuse to get out of it. I really would have. But I went to London in memorial to him, Adam Harvey. I said to his family in a tribute, I said, if I don't go to London, he's going to be very cranky. So that was why I went to London, to do my only Olympic Games, by the way.
Your performance in London Raps, did it have the extra edge because of this?
Well, I tried to give it the extra edge, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I don't know whether you achieved that, but it was a very emotional time for me, I can assure you.
Commentators generally have a little bit of bias. They have their own sort of agenda for their own rugby